The speaker kicking off these lectures is Patrick Ness, and clearly the link between Patrick and Siobhan through A Monster Calls is extraordinary, and it's been an extraordinary experience seeing that book published and seeing it take off the way it has. So what other person could we invite to be our inaugural lecturer for the Siobhan Dowd Trust Memorial Lecture? This is a dream of mine because when we set up the Trust 6 years ago, I always thought that something like this would be absolutely perfect for it. It's a combination of Siobhan's stature as a writer, something interesting to say, and we've got a fantastic speaker. And the Edinburgh Festival is, I think it's still the biggest literary festival in the country, possibly the world, so what better stage could you have for this? If you don't know about the Siobhan Dowd Trust, Siobhan, who wrote her books in a very brief period, really when she was ill as well, set the trust up in her will. And the point of the trust, what Siobhan wanted to happen, was that we would use the money from her books to bring the joy of reading to children who might not otherwise encounter it. Patrick is going to be our first speaker. The thing about both Siobhan and Patrick is that they're writers of enormous humanity. They bring a real understanding of human nature and a real warmth and empathy in their writing to the problems of young people. And I think this afternoon you're going to hear an extraordinary lecture. So no pressure, Patrick. Patrick Ness.
I was going to shake your hand. Now, the title of the speech is roughly Why on Earth Write Books for Children? I thought for a long time what I was going to talk about, and I decided almost immediately that I was and am truly, truly sick to death of YA clickbait. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Are children's books too dark? No. Should adults be reading children's books? Well, I mean, the first rule of literacy is you don't shame anyone for reading what they're already reading. And second, yes, why not? What's the problem? I mean, shortly before the first young adult literature convention, YALC. Anybody go to YALC? Anybody have a chance to go to YALC? Yeah, a couple of you. Oh, we've got a vocal audience. Yep. My speech. But shortly before YALC, I got asked by a broadsheet newspaper if I would write an opinion piece for them on YA. But only if I had a very strong point of view. Only if I had a very strong point of view. And I declined. Because when did we decide that page views were more important than discussion? You know, I understand the struggle for a reader's attention, the struggle to get enough revenue to keep reporting hard news, but oh, how I do get tired of YA articles telling me to be angry, be angry, be angry. I don't write books to find binary oppositions with which I can score easy points in internet debate club. Books are an exploration of ideas, and when did arguments cease to be? I get asked all the time about the difference between teen books and adult books. I know there are some YA writers here. We get asked all the time. So let's just settle this once and for all. Shall we settle it once and for all? I think the difference between a teen book and an adult book, for me, is one of boundaries. And I think YA tends to be about finding your boundaries, testing them, learning where they are, how you exist within them, what happens when you cross your boundaries, the penalties and benefits of doing so. And I think adult books tend to be about knowing your boundaries and feeling constricted by them or having someone else cross them. And I think that's it. I think that's all the difference I see. Because otherwise, I think they do exactly the same thing. They do what books should do. Two things, I think. One, they show you with the world and all that's possible within it. And two, they show you that you're not alone. So why do I write for young people? And, you know, I wonder sometimes if it really is as easy as that I write for the kid that I was who needed the books I wasn't getting, because I know he's still out there. I don't think that's quite the right answer, though. Because the right answer, of course, is that I write because I'm a writer. I write for the same reason that singers sing and sculptors sculpt. But why does a writer write? Why does an artist do anything? I don't know. Why especially write for kids? I don't know. Except that those are the stories I feel drawn to tell. I'm not writing for kids. I'm writing for humans experiencing life who just happen to be an earlier version of you now. And this, I have to say, is why I'm so pleased and honored to have been given the chance to help Siobhan Dowd create A Monster Calls. So pleased to have been asked to give this lecture. So enormously pleased to be associated with the trust. Siobhan Dowd wrote the way that I think all the best writers for children do. She wrote for children, which is to say, she wrote for anyone who ever was a child. And she's basically the writer I always wanted to be when I grew up. She says that. I admire her tremendously. Part of ourselves. It's not a wounded cry, but it recognizes wounds. It's not alone. This. I believe that a book, any novel, is a cry in the wilderness. It's a cry that says, this is the world I recognize. Do you recognize it too? And for children's books, I'd say that we issue that cry on behalf of the voiceless.